If you had to choose just one version of Lionel Messi to define his entire World Cup legacy, which one would it be? Rio 2014, Lusail 2022, or New Jersey 2026? 3 World Cup finals, 3 different eras, 3 completely different versions of Messi. One was a footballing genius, desperate to prove he belonged among the greatest. One became a world champion and fulfilled the dream of an entire nation. And one arrived at the tournament as a living legend, already immortal, yet still chasing history. But which version was truly the greatest? Before the 2014 FIFA World Cup, Lionel Messi had already achieved everything a footballer could dream of at club level. Multiple titles with Barcelona, 4 Ballon d'Or awards, widely regarded as the best player in the world. But in an Argentina shirt, his story still felt unfinished. His greatest achievement for the national team was only a runners-up medal at the 2007 Copa America. Brazil 2014 became the biggest question of his career. Could Lionel Messi carry an entire nation on his shoulders? And for 6 matches, he almost did. From the very start of the tournament, Messi became Argentina's heartbeat. A brilliant solo goal against Bosnia and Herzegovina. A dramatic stoppage-time winner against Iran when his team had run out of ideas. Then a stunning brace against Nigeria to complete a perfect group stage. 3 matches, 4 goals, 4 consecutive Player of the Match awards. It was the perfect opening act for a captain determined to silence every doubt. But what truly made Messi extraordinary in Brazil wasn't just the goals. It was his ability to reinvent himself. As the knockout rounds began, opponents devoted entire defensive plans to stopping him. So Messi adapted. Instead of forcing the game, he dropped deeper, becoming the architect rather than the finisher. Against Switzerland, he didn't score. But in the 118th minute, with penalties only moments away, one perfectly weighted pass split the defense and allowed Angel Di Maria to score the winning goal. Then came the semi-final against the Netherlands. After 120 tense, scoreless minutes, Messi stepped forward first in the penalty shootout. He calmly converted the opening kick, not just to give Argentina the lead, but to shoulder the pressure before anyone else. That was the moment of a true captain. His influence throughout the tournament extended far beyond statistics. Yes, he finished among the tournament leaders for successful dribbles and chances created. But more importantly, Argentina were built around him. A disciplined, defensively organized side willing to suffer, to wait, and then place every attacking hope in the feet of one extraordinary footballer. And then came the final, the Maracanã. The biggest stage Messi had ever stood on. For 120 exhausting minutes, he kept searching for the moment that could change history. He created chances. He kept fighting. But one missed opportunity from a tight angle, and Mario Götze's decisive goal in the 113th minute brought Argentina's dream to an end. FIFA later described Messi as the true difference maker when awarding him the tournament's Golden Ball. It was football's highest individual honor on the world's biggest stage. Yet it also became one of the most bittersweet images of his career. A golden trophy in his hands, while the one trophy he wanted more than anything slipped away. That's why Brazil 2014 wasn't simply the story of the tournament's best player. It was the story of the limits of individual greatness. A reminder that even the greatest footballer of his generation couldn't always carry the weight of an entire nation alone. A burden that would haunt Lionel Messi for 8 long years until one unforgettable night in Lusail finally rewrote the ending. If the 2014 World Cup was the story of one man's limits, then the 2022 World Cup was the story of his evolution. 8 years after the heartbreak of the Maracanã, Lionel Messi arrived in Qatar as a completely different player. He was no longer chasing his first international trophy. That burden had already been lifted with the Copa America triumph. Argentina entered the tournament on a 36-match unbeaten run under Lionel Scaloni. More importantly, they arrived as a team united by one purpose alone: to lift the World Cup for their captain. What made the 2022 version of Messi so extraordinary wasn't his pace or athleticism at 35. It was his mastery of timing. He had learned that greatness wasn't about running more. It was about running at exactly the right moment. For much of every match, Messi appeared to walk across the pitch. Not because he lacked energy, but because it was part of the plan. He observed. He studied. He read the defensive shape. Then, in a single instant, he would unlock a defense with one impossible pass or one sudden burst of acceleration. Scaloni built an entire system around that idea. Messi was given complete freedom to roam, drifting between the lines as a playmaker, dropping deep to orchestrate attacks, or floating to the right to dictate the rhythm of the game. Behind him, relentless runners like Rodrigo de Paul, Enzo Fernandez, and Alexis Mac Allister carried the defensive workload, winning possession before immediately looking for their number 10. Ahead of him, Julian Alvarez became the first defender from the front, pressing relentlessly and creating the space Messi needed to decide matches. And as the tournament grew bigger, so did Messi. After the shocking defeat to Saudi Arabia in the opening game, Argentina stood on the brink of an unthinkable group stage exit. It was Messi who broke the tension. A thunderous strike against Mexico. A goal that didn't just rescue a match, it rescued an entire World Cup campaign. From that moment on, he took control of the tournament. He scored against Australia in the round of 16. He produced both a goal and a sublime assist in the dramatic quarter-final against the Netherlands. Then came Croatia. With one unforgettable run, Messi twisted past Joško Vardiol, arguably the tournament's outstanding defender, before laying the ball on a plate for Julian Alvarez to seal a 3-0 victory. But his greatest performance was still to come. The World Cup final against France, a match many now regard as the greatest final football has ever witnessed. Messi scored twice. Then, with the weight of an entire nation resting on his shoulders, he calmly converted Argentina's opening penalty in the shootout, setting the tone for the victory that followed. It wasn't simply a brilliant individual performance. It was the portrait of a captain leading through composure. A leader carrying his nation not with emotion, but with absolute control when the pressure reached its highest point. By the end of the tournament, Messi had become the first player in World Cup history to score in every knockout stage as well as the group stage, completing a scoring record unlike any before him. But even those historic numbers only tell part of the story. What truly defined Lionel Messi's 2022 World Cup wasn't the statistics, it was the evolution of a genius. A player who had learned to master his own limitations. A player who no longer tried to carry Argentina alone. Instead, he inspired an entire team to carry the dream alongside him. And together, they delivered one of the greatest moments of redemption football has ever seen. If the 2014 World Cup was a story about limits, and the 2022 World Cup was a story about fulfillment, then the 2026 World Cup became a story of immortality. At 39 years old, Lionel Messi became the first player in football history to appear in 6 consecutive FIFA World Cups, a milestone that had previously been reached only by Cristiano Ronaldo. But the remarkable part wasn't simply that Messi was still there. It was that he was still deciding matches. Data from FIFA's TrackAb tracking system revealed a fascinating paradox. Messi covered less ground than he had in previous World Cups, yet his peak sprint speed actually increased, reaching 30.9 km/h during Argentina's match against Algeria. It was the ultimate evolution of what many call the art of walking. He conserved energy with minimal movement, waiting patiently before exploding into life within the smallest pockets of space, only when the game demanded one decisive moment. His role evolved once again. If Qatar had transformed him into a free-roaming conductor, North America saw him become something even more sophisticated, a master architect. Rather than dribbling through crowds as he once had, Messi operated deeper, controlling matches with his vision, manipulating space, and delivering passes capable of deciding games in an instant. Behind him, Rodrigo de Paul, Enzo Fernandez, and Alexis Mac Allister once again formed the relentless engine room, covering every meter Messi no longer needed to run. Ahead of him, Julian Alvarez and Lautaro Martinez stretched defenses with constant pressing and intelligent movement, creating the spaces where Messi could quietly wait before striking. And once again, his influence grew with every round. The group stage began in spectacular fashion. A hat-trick against Algeria, then both goals in Argentina's victory over Austria. When the knockout rounds arrived, Messi continued to deliver, scoring against Cape Verde and Egypt before producing perhaps his finest performance of the tournament in the semi-final. 2 world-class assists. A masterclass in playmaking, a 2-1 victory over Harry Kane's England, and another World Cup final for Argentina. But this time, football refused to write another fairy tale ending. Against a brilliantly organized Spain, Argentina battled courageously for the entire match. Even after Enzo Fernandez was sent off, they refused to surrender. Emiliano Martinez produced one extraordinary save after another, dragging the contest into extra time through sheer determination. Then came the decisive moment. Just 39 seconds into the second period of extra time, substitute Ferran Torres found the breakthrough. 1 finish, 1 goal. Spain 1-0 Argentina. The dream was over. Messi could not lead Argentina to back-to-back World Cup titles. He also fell short of the Golden Boot, with Kylian Mbappé once again finishing as the tournament's top scorer. The Golden Ball belonged to another player this time as well. Rodri, Spain's midfield general. But some moments rise above trophies. The image of Lionel Messi breaking down in tears in the stands, moments after receiving his medal from heads of state, became one of the defining images of the tournament. It was an emotional final chapter to a World Cup journey that had lasted across 6 editions. The ending may not have brought another trophy, but it delivered something perhaps even rarer, proof that true greatness is never measured solely by medals. Because even at 39 years of age, on football's greatest stage, Lionel Messi was still capable of bending the game to his will. And perhaps that is the clearest definition of immortality the sport has ever seen. Looking back at those 3 World Cup epics, it's easy to be captivated by the brilliance of 2022. The tournament where Lionel Messi finally lifted the World Cup, completing arguably the greatest trophy collection football has ever seen. Or perhaps your mind goes back to 2014, when a 27-year-old Messi was at the peak of his physical powers, with his entire career still ahead of him. For most people, the conclusion seems obvious. Messi's peak was Qatar. But if a footballer's greatness is measured only by the trophies his team wins, then we're reducing Messi to the standards of ordinary players. Because true greatness isn't defined by which trophy you lift. It's defined by how far you push the limits of what a human being is capable of. And that's exactly why, once you strip away the glamour of silverware, we believe the 2026 World Cup represents the purest and perhaps the greatest version of Lionel Messi. Just look at the context. The 2022 World Cup featured 32 nations. By 2026, the tournament had expanded to 48 teams, meaning the road to the trophy demanded an extra knockout round, another elite opponent, and countless additional minutes on the pitch. The journey wasn't simply longer, it was exponentially more demanding. Then consider his age. In Qatar, Messi was 35. In North America, he was 39. Less pace, less endurance, slower recovery, a far greater risk of injury. Yet he remained the undisputed heartbeat of Argentina. That was no longer football driven by athleticism. It was football driven by intelligence, the ability to read the game before it unfolded, to occupy the perfect space, to conserve every movement until the exact second it mattered, the art of extracting maximum impact from every remaining step. Many analysts describe this as economy football, a level of efficiency that only a handful of legendary midfield minds, players like Zinedine Zidane, Andrea Pirlo, and Andres Iniesta ever truly mastered in the twilight of their careers. So perhaps the debate shouldn't be about proving that Messi 2026 was better than Messi 2022. That's an almost impossible argument to make. Maybe the better way to see it is this. The 2022 World Cup was the peak of Messi's achievements. The 2026 World Cup was the peak of his legacy. And now, we'd love to hear your verdict. Do you believe the 39-year-old Messi at the 2026 World Cup was the most complete version of his career? Or do you still believe that nothing will ever surpass the glory of Qatar 2022? Let us know in the comments below. And if you agree with this different perspective, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment 2026 so we know where you stand in this debate. But if you disagree, even better, tell us why, because in the end, debates like these are part of what makes football so special. They're how we continue to celebrate a player who didn't just dominate an era, he redefined the limits of the sport itself. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.